Welcome to our series of interviews with candidates for the governor of Utah. I'm Mike Mendenhall, president of the Utah League of Cities and Towns. We've prepared our questions based on a survey of our league board of directors. These mayors and council members have prioritized issues important to the residents in the areas they represent. We're happy to welcome former Speaker of the House, Greg Hughes, candidate for the great state of Utah, the governorship of Utah.
Happy to be here. It's been the honor of my life to be a public servant. I was elected in 2002 and I served 16 years in our state House of Representatives. And I got to spend 4 years as the majority whip and then 4 years as Speaker of the House. And it's from 2002 to 2018, at the end of 2018, the state saw a lot of growth, a lot of change, a lot of challenges. And you can't help in that time. I was 32 when I ran. I'm 50 years old today. That's a curve in someone's life. And so you learn a lot about all the challenges that a state may face, the different stakeholders that are involved, how the public gets involved, how you do hard things, impactful policy. And as you don't see a lot of open seats for governor, and we have one this year, I felt that I had something to contribute to a race like this. And we have good candidates. It's a deep pool. But I do think that the policy matters. And I think that this needs to be more than just platitudes or what could become maybe more vague positions in a campaign. And I think that my experience in public service and as a public servant, we can get a little bit more detailed. And I think that'll be good.
What's a Hughes administration look like interacting with cities? So
I've said this in town hall meetings, and I've mentioned this many times. There is so much common ground in terms of public servants' goals. It really isn't a respecter of political party. It isn't even a respecter of geography. There's common ground to be found in public policy that impact all political jurisdictions, cities, counties, the state, and you work towards that. You work towards finding that common ground, and sometimes you're successful at it, and sometimes you're able to find that overlap, and then other times it is not as successful. And I've seen both sides of that. I've seen when there's been a very collaborative effort where people are getting ahead of the curve, they're talking about an issue that's emerging or coming up. I've also have been on the clock as a public servant when local decisions have been made, but the state has not been in tune. Maybe there's a plat approved or more population coming, but a state road that can't bear the population, but there hasn't been the programming that steps up and prepares at the same time. There's some other issues that impact maybe a jurisdiction, but its ripple effect can be the whole state. And what do we do in those circumstances? You see that interaction play out in different ways. Very good, okay, and then not in a good way. And I've seen that, but I think that the greatest things we've been able to do, and this is intuitive, it's when you're bringing people together, you're looking at one another, you're eye to eye, you're trying to be problem solvers. That's what I would be if I'm governor. And what you can expect from a Hughes administration is one that knows the stakeholders. I've worked with cities. I've worked in my public service for 16 years with many different cities and their impact on the state, but what the state's decision impact the city. And we have a lot of great success there, but we've seen times where we've not seen eye to eye either. I think I bring that, and I think that gives our state that's growing as much as it is, and with its challenges, the best chance for success, because we can put people around the table. You have someone who knows the stakeholders as well as how to find that common ground.
Our residents, our shared constituency from the public office that you've held and city leaders as well, the number one item that they're anxious about is growth, right? Yes. Growth in their communities, growth in the state as a whole. What would be some of those issues or some of those solutions to maybe some of the problems that growth brings with it as well? So
when I became Speaker, I had to coach myself up on state issues that were beyond my district that I represented in Draper. And there were many of our state lawmakers, say water, for instance. We called them water dogs, rural Utahns or representatives or state senators that could help me understand those issues at a deeper level. But when you're Speaker, you have to actually get out throughout the whole state and understand issues of infrastructure, whether it be water, roads, rail, even fiber optics, technology. How do we do these things? Our education system. I consider our emerging workforce an infrastructure for the state. How does our economy grow? But it's those young people that are going to be getting degrees and certificates that are going to be part of that workforce. That's an infrastructure for the state as well. We have two different economic conditions going on in this state. And what I will tell you is that the interest for the Wasatch Front, which is getting very crowded, congestion failure, cost of housing, scarcity of housing, air quality, We can solve those things, and the Wasatch Front can see itself thrive in a much more sustainable way if the rest of the state and its communities, its towns, its cities, its emerging workforce don't feel that they have to migrate to the Wasatch Front to be able to find opportunity or jobs. But we invest the infrastructure needed so that those communities see economic prosperity as well. That's going to be a pressure relief valve for the Wasatch Front, as well as bring opportunity that those communities outside of our 4 counties haven't seen. And that is how you see the sustainability of the state go forward. Wasatch Front, with the rest of the state of Utah, I would argue in 2020, those interests align more today than ever before. And you need a leader and an administration that understands that and is ready to spend the political capital to achieve that.
We've touched on the economic success of the state and you being a lawmaker for over a decade in the state of Utah. One of the things you're known for is the inland port.
Yes. So let me just say as quickly as I can. So inland ports are not new. It is a best practice with logistics and how you move imports and exports around the world. And we see them east of the Rockies in the United States. We see them around the world in China as that their economy has grown. But at west of the Rockies, we've not seen such an efficient inland port model. This is what it is. From every port, starting up in Seattle, all the way down to Long Beach, every one of the rail lines and every one of these West Coast ports, their rail line uniquely finds its way into the state of Utah somewhere. We have roads, I-15 from Alaska all the way through Canada, the United States, and Mexico, 3 countries, 1 road. You have I-80 going across the country, I-70. You have a complete rebuild of an international airport, the only rebuild in America of the entire airport, that comes with also increased freight, air freight capacity. So whether it be rail, road, or air, if we know that inland ports are a success, they bring economies, manufacturing, an ecosystem for economic prosperity. It's not a theory, it's happening. Utah, more than 49 other states, has the kind of transportation infrastructure advantages to really do something like that. Here's where the relationship between our jurisdictions and the state comes in, and this is an important relationship. I don't think that a city's responsibility necessarily is the U.S. Customs port vision, imports, exports by itself. I think that where we had a bill before I left the session, or my last session, we wanted to make sure that these studies that have been going on since 1978, and I think that the reason you saw those studies happen without much movement afterwards is you saw counties or cities staring at it, but this is a much bigger issue, and the state has an interest in being a part of and helping something like this come to fruition. We had controversy in Salt Lake City. I don't know how many people know, but we sat down with the members of their city council and worked to find common ground to bring forward a special session bill that addressed some of those issues that were there. We're looking at a statewide system, not just in one place in Salt Lake City, but this rail line doesn't just come in one spot in the state. So when we talk about the opportunities for Utah outside the Wasatch Front to see economic prosperity, this inland port concept and this inland port vision of finding places where imports and exports can happen close to rail, close to roads, it is available for the whole state and its economy. And you have to do this. You have to work with those local jurisdictions and make sure you can see it happen. I think the appetite is there. I think the need to see emerging workforce have opportunities for jobs around the whole state is so strong. The inland port concept is one that I think is one of the state of Utah's greatest opportunities, but it will not happen in a siloed or myopic way. We have to have those discussions, and I'm hearing from a lot of elected officials that there's a lot of excitement about it, and that's what you have to build on and make sure you get right.
Tell us about some of the plans you would have around transportation and air quality specifically.
Right, so it's really a 2-prong attack. You do them at the same time. One, multimodal. You know what that means? It means that you're getting from point A to point B on fixed rail, whether it be commuter rail, light rail. You do have our automobiles that are going on. You have bus rapid transit, but you even have the bicycles and the scooters. Any way that people can move, commerce occurs on transportation systems. Everybody has to move. So it's a smart way and a clean air solution to find different ways for people to get around. The way you plan the growth also contributes in a smart way to the air quality. If it's just more tailpipes, if we're just going to expand roads out or we're going to double deck all our freeways, expect the air quality to continue to get worse. That's one approach in terms of multimodal transportation infrastructure and then in how we do it. The second one is, as I mentioned, let's see the growth throughout the state. If the population can grow and there can be prosperity throughout the state, not just found inside the Wasatch Front, then you see that the population won't find its way or try to make its way into one area of the state. You see that, and that reduces your population or the crunch of population growth, which also will contribute to the clean air because people will be able to find those careers and lives that are not just in this valley where we're seeing it get more and more crowded.
If there's something else that makes residents anxious besides growth, certainly lately has been tax policy, right? How do we pay for this infrastructure? How do we pay for some of the solutions that need to happen statewide and in our respective cities? What's a Hughes administration stance or plan for sustainable tax policy while still obviously keying on the economic growth and the success of our state as a whole?
So we continue on from what Speaker Hughes did. When I was the Speaker, we looked at transportation funding, we looked at our gas tax, and we made some critical reforms on terms of what that rate for that gas tax is and how that is paid for, because we know that our gas tax that used to pay for everything pays for a small portion of the growth or the repair of roads or even our highway patrol. We did some reform around there. We looked at our communities, our counties, our cities, BNC roads. We looked at how do we fund those and how do we give local jurisdictions more tools to find revenue to be able to address their transportation needs. We also looked at mass transit. We've done those things, but there's more to do. The way we continue forward is a little bit, again, hand in glove, economic opportunity, growing the pie economically. If we can find smart ways to ignite the economy around the whole state, that is a way you're going to be able to deal with the crunch of transportation needs and the demands of our transportation system. The more that we can spread that growth across the state, those will help us in terms of mitigating the transportation challenges that we have by having the economic growth happen. Because look, taxes, you can't just keep raising them. We've seen this. We just saw an historic referendum that was all grassroots that said we don't want to see anything by way of a gas tax increase. And so we've heard the people. You're not going to tax your way, increase taxes to get yourself, to address the population growth. Growing the pie, the economic pie, making sure that we are seeing that prosperity, that's how you're going to do it. It's how it's always happened. When we lowered taxes in 2007, took the tax off of food, what did we see? We saw increased revenue. I still believe that that's not a theory, it's a fact. The more we lower the tax burden, but in an attempt to make sure that the economy is growing, it's a growing economy that pays the bills for states, counties, and cities. The one thing I would say to our local elected officials is that the state of Utah can be such a powerful partner. I'll take the Operation Rio Grande, the issue that was happening in Salt Lake City. It was clear to me that that was not a unique city problem in terms of the magnet and the people coming from all over the state, even maybe regionally from the western United States, to one city. We were able to leverage as a state over $74 million of additional resources to help something that was getting worse and worse. And you see metropolitan areas around the country feeling the same, seeing the same thing happen. There was a partnership there that has only been matched by the Winter Olympic Games in terms of jurisdictions coming together to address an issue. And the Winter Games were it was a lot happier of an issue. But let's look at that, and let's look at those issues that truly do impact a state, how we plan, how we make sure the economy is strong, and how those issues impacted local jurisdiction, because chances are there is a nexus there. There is a partnership to be had. And I think that I have a track record for this, and I think that it's needed going forward for cities, whether it be the mayors, the city council members, the counties, really to look at the state and let's problem solve together. It's there. There's common ground to be found if we aren't in our own silos. And I think we've done this in the past, but as governor, you can do that even to a greater degree than we have seen so far.
Former Speaker of the House, Greg Hughes, candidate for governor in 2020. Thank you for joining us, and thanks for coming to the League of Cities and Towns.
Thanks. Good to be here.
Thanks for watching our Questions for the Candidates series, brought to you by the Utah League of Cities and Towns. And as you weigh your decisions this election year, remember that the government closest to the people governs best.